From the three-wheeled automobile to cars that literally don't need drivers, here's the entire history of cars in 10 minutes. It all started in the year 1765, when French inventor Nicolas Joseph Cugnot came up with a brilliant idea on how to make movement simpler. Nicolas was a military engineer in the French army, and at the start of the 1760s, his main goal was coming up with a faster way to move heavy ammunition and cannons. In 1770, Nicolas discovered that he could make the steam pistons motion rotary by throwing in a ratchet to its corners. So he combined the ratchet arrangement with a three-wheel horse carrier, and the first ever self-propelled vehicle was made. Nicolas called it Faudier à vapeur, which was French for steam wagon. However, not very long after, Nicolas's creation got him in serious trouble, as in 1771, the Faudier à vapeur knocked down a wall in Paris. This became the first ever automobile accident, and after this, all works on the Faudier à vapeur were stopped. Nicolas also sorta got arrested. Now, word had gone round Europe about Nicolas's invention. Particularly in England, engineers began to develop high-pressure steam engines that were far more compact and powerful than what Nicolas had initially designed. In 1801, English inventor Richard Trevithick modified the engine with boiler technology to create his six-seater puffing devil. And in 1805, Oliver Evans developed his Eructor amphibobolus, which moved both in water and on land. By the 1830s, other inventors like Goldsworthy Gurney and Walter Hancock had built faster and more reliable steam carriages. However, these carriages still had a lot of flaws. They were super heavy, ran on large boilers, and burnt a lot of water. So in many instances, it made more sense to hitch on a horse rather than use one of these carriages. But this was until 1886, when Carl Benz entered the conversation with something completely different. When Carl Benz was a child, he was completely obsessed with mechanical engineering. So by the time he got older, Carl combined Otto's four-stroke combustion into a single cylinder, and also made use of lightweight steel and wire-spoked wheels that absorbed impact. However, the most defining feature of Carl's automobile was the energy source, as he transformed a simple cleaning agent to power. You see, Carl's cylindrical engine ran on a petroleum-based cleaning chemical called ligurian. The ligurian flowed into the car's carburetor, where it mixed with air. After this, an electric spark ignites the vapor inside the cylinder, which in turn pushes the large horizontal flywheel that's responsible for motion of up to 10 miles per hour. In 1886, Carl Benz coupled his combustion engine with a three-wheel carriage to make the patent motor wagon, the first true automobile ever made. Now, while Carl managed to fix everything Nicolas and his other engineering predecessors had missed with their models, the major downside of his vehicle then was the price. He only ever produced 3 original prototypes of the motor wagon, and up until 1902, only 1,200 units were made. By the early 20th century, cars had become popular, and inventors had already established the usual four-wheelers we have now. But these cars were still considered luxury goods, and the main reason for this was that they were solely handmade and required tons of effort on a single unit. But in 1908, Henry Ford and his Ford Motor Company came up with the ultimate game changer, the Ford Model T. The Model T wasn't the shiniest vehicle or the fastest, but what made it stand out was how affordable it was. And Ford's secret was his moving assembly line policy. Instead of loading the entire manufacturing process on one plant, the car moved through a production line, with each worker owning a specific task to complete. This reduced both the time and costs required, therefore allowing Ford to lower the price they sold their machines. Many companies immediately adopted this policy, and with time, cars stopped being a rare sight on roads. By the 1920s, cars had integrated into a normal society, so the next goal for companies was how they could stand out the most. While European brands like Bugatti and Alfa Romeo channeled their production to powerful engines for motorsports, American car makers like Cadillac, Packard, and Duesenberg built reputations around luxury and exclusivity, with integrated fenders, designs, and streamlined bodies providing them with a special feel. During Alfred Solid's managerial era at General Motors, the American businessman developed a lineup of entry-level to luxury models, allowing buyers to climb through the hierarchy over time. At the same time, Japan was also creating a name for themselves as specialists in regional designing. Brands like Nissan would create cars specifically based on the needs of where they would be exported. Overall, this era was all rainbows and sunshine for the automobile industry, and while the future seemed only brighter, the goodwill came to a dramatic stop at the start of the 1970s, as the world was faced with an oil crisis that sent multiple car makers to their early wrecking yards. In 1973, the Organization of Arab Petroleum Countries began what is infamously known as the first oil shock, after it hit nations it went up against during the Yom Kippur War with an oil embargo. The United States, Canada, Japan, Netherlands, and the UK woke up to a 300% increase in fuel prices. Obviously, the main victims of the petrol shortage that followed were automobile companies, and almost immediately, fuel-hungry vehicles became a liability nobody wanted to deal with. This oil shock left car makers with two options. They either had to figure out how to adjust their designs to meet the new fuel efficiency requirements or sink into forced mergers. In Europe and Japan, companies like Toyota, Honda, and Volkswagen were already prepared, as they'd already been producing smaller, more efficient vehicles that matched the new market conditions. But in the US, car makers struggled to downsize their engines, and this inability to adjust immediately swung the dynamic in car supplies. At the same time, the environmental effects of gasoline pollution began to become a problem, so powerful emission engines were sort of huge public enemies at the time. So by the 80s, automakers were forced to advance innovations, which brought about the front-wheel drive, improvements in fuel injection, and aerodynamics. These advancements would roll into the 1990s, but by this time, technological integration became the main focus. Cars stopped being purely mechanical, with more electronic improvements preparing the foundation for the growing globalization at the time. The modern automobile focused on safety, comfort, and reliability, as features like anti-lock braking systems, airbags, and engine management became common and essential car parts. By this period, the production market had been evenly split between the Japanese and European car makers, as brands like Toyota, Honda, and Nissan focused on affordability and performance with family-oriented SUVs, while European manufacturers remained stable on high-performance engineering. As time went by, emission standards continued to tighten, so companies began exploring hybrid model cars. Notably, the early 2000s Toyota Prius offered a new approach to fuel efficiency as they merged gasoline engines with electric motors, which interestingly set the precedent for what followed. The 2010s welcomed the current stage of automobile engineering that we currently sit in with electric vehicles. Although this is not the first time engineers had tried to develop electric power vehicles, as General Motors released their Electro-Vet in the middle of the oil shock. However, when the petrol prices stabilized, the need of building more charging hotspots didn't seem necessary, so they shelved the project. The American car makers, Tesla Motors, founded by Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning, released the Tesla Roadster in 2008. The Lotus Elise vehicle ran on a lithium-ion battery and could travel on 244 miles per charge. Then, in 2012, under the management of Elon Musk, they released the Model S, which solidified both Tesla and America's stand in the EV race. The Model S completely revolutionized software technological integration, as it saw the usual dashboards be replaced with touchscreen monitors that handled everything from the car's settings to climate and the unimaginable self-driving autopilot feature. It's also important to note that since Tesla made their patents public, other brands like Nissan, Chevrolet, and BMW also ventured into EV models. According to Elon Musk, they'd left the market open for competitors, as the new objective was a clean and renewable automobile community. Today, the EV age still remains the current automobile age, with numerous improvements rolling in every day. From steam-powered experiments to today's electric-connected vehicles, the history of cars is a constant reinvention.